Hello, everyone. Pastor George here, and we have our mailbag question for today. And this is a good one. This is one that I think you guys would be really interested in because this is a very, uh, you know, real world issue. So let's dive into it. The person wrote to me. This is anonymous, and you'll see why. Pastor George, I'm having trouble reconciling my drug use with my newfound faith. About twice a week, I have a 5 alcoholic drink night, and once a week, I indulge in marijuana. More rarely than that, I use cocaine around once every couple of months. I've maintained this level of drug use for many years, and it hasn't yet had a negative impact on my capacity to do the things I want to do, care for myself/others, work, etc. Biblically, however, I know that using mind-altering drugs is frowned upon. Could you help me understand what God's word as it pertains to this issue? So this is a really good question. So this is kind of a two-prong thing that I have, and this is a conversation that many Christians are starting to have as certain drugs become legalized, mainly marijuana, right? And as with all these things, it is a complicated issue. I can't go into all of drug laws and things like that, and what counts as bad versus good, because I understand that there's all sorts of different arguments on these types of things. But I think that Christians can kind of take two prescriptions from the Bible. So it's good that you're interested in what the Bible has to say on this at all, because a lot of people, even if they are Christian, will just be like, oh, the Bible doesn't mention weed or it doesn't mention cocaine, so I don't have to worry about it. Well, that's not actually the case, right? So those drugs were not very present in a real way in the ancient world. Yeah, like there were some of them around, but like not really in the way that we have them today, right? Mass produced, manufactured, that type of stuff. And so how do Christians deal with these types of things? Well, um, the thing that Christians have continually gone back to in the Bible as a modus operandi for all sorts of mind altering substances is drunkenness, right? Drunkenness and stewardship. So I'll do the first one first, I guess. So drunkenness is obviously has to do with strong drink, right? Alcohol, stuff like that. And the Bible is very much opposed to drunkenness. Now, drunkenness could mean there's debate about Christians is like, does that mean when you feel tipsy? Is that drunkenness? I tend not to not say exactly where. Usually for me, it comes down to basically once you have lost any control of your faculties or your good sense, that's when you've reached drunkenness. And so I don't put a limit on how many beers that is, because there are some people who have quite high tolerance and some others who have no tolerance or whatever, and that's not really my place to be like 2.5 beers is what the church decrees, go in peace or whatever, right? And of course some people deal with substance abuse issues and shouldn't have any at all, right? Because even one can lead to bad things down the road. But the Bible is very much against drunkenness, right? In Galatians and Ephesians and in lots of places in the Old Testament, like the book of Proverbs, drunkenness is a bad thing that Christians should avoid, right? It's actually one of the qualifications for elders is that they should not be drinkers of strong drink, which in that case, remember in the ancient world, basically all you had to drink was alcohol. And when the Bible talks about strong drink, it means people who drink like to basically get drunk, because what happens then is in the ancient world when you had wine, you would water it down because you were drinking all day usually because it was cleaner than the water. So people would really, it'd be like mostly watered down wine, and that would be what people would drink for everything, right? That's what Jesus and his disciples drank, and stuff like that, right? So you have that aspect of it. And there you can take the negative inference of being like, well, if the Bible is against drunkenness because it alters the mind, right, and makes people do stupid things, then you could equally apply that to drugs, right? Because drugs also alter the mind and make people do stupid things and leave their senses, right? So that's one place you do it. But as you kind of maybe alluded to, is that some people also, it depends how much they imbibe of the substance for that to happen, right? And so then we kind of hit the second prong of it, which is stewardship. Stewardship over your body is very important because as the church is a temple of the living God, right? In its body, so too we have the Spirit in us, right? And we are called to be good stewards, and that comes in a lot of different ways. We usually think about money, but I think health is another part of that. This is something I struggle with. Is that like you have to be treating your body well? Why? Not just for your own personal health benefit, but because the longer that you are alive and well abled, the better you are able to spread the gospel to other people, right? So part of it as well is the consistent use of drugs is not good for you. Obviously, this is really that difficult to understand. I think everyone understands this way. Consistent use of alcohol isn't good for you, right? Consistent uses of a lot of substances aren't good for you. So part of that is a stewardship issue as well. And does it impact your ability to spread the gospel? And is it hurting yourself? Well, if that's the case, then yeah, you shouldn't do it, right? This is especially the case for harder substances, right, that really mess you up. And of course, we have the last one. And this was the one that everyone probably hates the most, but it's still part of God's word, and we have to treat it that way. And this is the one that matters depending on where you live. But we have to remember that in Romans 13, we are told to obey the authorities, right? And basically, the way the church has taken that is that in every case, really, that like unless it really impacts your faith, you cannot. You can't break the law, right? Just because you want to. And that would be very applicable to the drug situation because it depends where you are in some places, right? Like New Jersey just voted to legalize marijuana, so that wouldn't be very applicable here, right? Or California or New York or whatever, but it would be applicable for marijuana in like southern states. And certainly it's applicable for cocaine, I think, all over the United States. And so you have an injunction right there to say that you shouldn't be doing these substances because, you might disagree with the government, you might think they're wrong, but it's not necessarily within the Christian mindset, like your job to tell the government when it's right or wrong, especially on things that the Bible, doesn't really care about all that much, because you have to see it in relation to what the church was experiencing in the ancient world. And basically they saw the Roman government's ability to do things as their ability to kind of do whatever they wanted as long as it didn't stop the spreading of the gospel and work to change that over time, right? So I would say that with the three prongs of the way that people should be thinking about drugs is, unless it's legal, then if it's not legal at all, then you shouldn't do it at all. But if it is, then you have to really take into account, one and two. Is it impacting you negatively in the way that it's harder for you to grow spiritually? And are you doing stupid things with it? And two, is it negatively affecting your ability to be a good steward of your body by killing it with substances and stuff like that, right? And the best retort to this is not to, turn around and go, well, soda is such and such thing. And that's because you're right? Soda is that way. And that's more of like a call out and trying to keep other people consistent rather than, trying to keep yourself and your old habits. So I think that that's a really good question, and something that we usually don't really talk about. But it's an important thing to think about because as laws get more relaxed towards these types of things, this is something that the church has had to deal with more and more. And if you look in the past, the church has basically taken this. This was kind of a lot of the church's stance during Prohibition, which was actually something that a lot of the churches were behind at the time for all sorts of reasons. And you had other things like this. So that's kind of my general thing. Stay with the three prongs of obeying government, stewardship, and drunkenness, and you can kind of figure out what you should and shouldn't be doing. But still a good question, and I'll be praying for you as you think through that. For everyone else, have a wonderful, and for that person too, I don't know why I said for everyone else. For all of you, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. I will see you Sunday for church, and then next week for more Theologs. Peace out.